Have you ever been right in the middle of a sentence? You're on a roll, you feel confident, you're making a great point, and then just poof, the one word you need, the absolute key to your whole thought, it just vanishes. It's right there. You can almost taste it. You know, it's on the tip of your tongue, but it just won't come out.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of like cognitive quicksand, that little wave of panic that washes over you when the word disappears mid-flow.
Yeah.
And it happens everywhere, right? Presenting to your board, on a really important Zoom call, or even just, trying to land a joke at dinner. That feeling is just, it's universal.
It is. And what happens? You stall, you get a little embarrassed, or worse, you just lose your entire train of thought.
Right.
But, and this is really what we're going to get into today, that moment, forgetting a word, it's just a normal cognitive hiccup. It happens to everyone, from the most polished public speaker to anyone. It is not a sign that you're not smart or you're unprepared.
We have to get that out of the way right at the top. Because real fluency, true communication skill, isn't about perfect recall. It's about how you handle those moments. It's the ability to keep the conversation flowing.
So it's resilience.
It's resilience. It's adaptability. You're an expert, not because you never stumble, but because you know exactly how to recover from the stumble.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We are going to look into this really common cognitive trip-up. We'll explore the science behind why our brains do this tip of the tongue syndrome, or TOT, as the researchers call it. And more importantly, we're going to give you a sort of roadmap, a toolkit to help you master that blank moment so you can turn those stumbles into, maybe even captivating moments of communication.
Yeah, we're going to focus on that adaptability you mentioned. We'll look at the on-the-spot fixes you can use right away, and then also the long-term training, both cognitive and physical, that can make these moments happen less often and feel way less stressful when they do.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we can get to the solutions, we have to understand the science. Why do our amazing brains sometimes just lose a word? This tip of the tongue syndrome, it's comforting just knowing it has a name,
It is. It really is. Because knowing that scientists have actually studied this exact feeling, this sense of being so close to a word but not being able to grab it, it helps you stop judging yourself.
Right.
And that's the starting point. TOT is a universal brain quirk. It is not, and I have to repeat this, it is not a sign that you're losing your intelligence or that you didn't prepare enough. It just means your brain, which is this incredibly complex machine juggling, multiple systems at once, has had a tiny momentary retrieval failure. We just have to normalize it.
Okay, so if it's normal, what's actually failing? The word is in there somewhere, right? In my long-term memory. The sources we looked at point to 4 main causes, and they all seem to be about different kinds of cognitive stress.
They are. The first one is probably the one people feel most acutely, especially in a professional setting. It's pressure and performance anxiety. The big one.
The big one. When we're in a situation we see as high stakes, a job interview, an investor pitch, we suddenly become hyper-aware of how we're coming across.
So you start monitoring yourself. You have this little critic in your head running commentary on your own speech.
Exactly. And that self-monitoring, that inner critic, it's eating up huge amounts of cognitive bandwidth that should be going toward just speaking and retrieving words.
Right.
So when stress hormones like cortisol start flooding your system, the prefrontal cortex, which is critical for your working memory and, coordinating all this stuff, it gets less efficient. The pathway from the meaning of the word to the sound of the word gets jammed.
So the word is still in the library, but the librarian is panicking and can't find the right shelf.
That's a perfect analogy. The book is there, but you're so worried about the library being audited that your hands are shaking, you can't pull it off the shelf. That's anxiety blocking a perfectly good retrieval path.
Okay, that makes so much sense. The second major cause you mentioned feels, very 2024. It's cognitive overload. Yeah, this happens when we're just plain tired or distracted or just trying to do too many things at once. Think about what your brain is doing in a normal conversation. It's listening, it's reading social cues from the other person, it's thinking about what to say next, it's trying to remember specific facts or words. The sources call it overwhelming your mental queue.
So if I'm trying to explain something complicated, while also checking my notes and worrying about the time and making sure I'm making eye contact, I'm basically setting myself up to fail.
You're setting yourself up for a blank moment, yeah. You've maxed out your brain's processing power. You've exceeded the capacity of your working memory to hold all that information and run a high-speed search for a specific word at the same time. Something has to give.
It's like having too many tabs open on your computer.
Exactly like that. And eventually one of them is going to freeze.
Okay, so the third cause is a bit more comforting, actually. It's less about stress and more about just the brain being the brain. Normal memory retrieval glitches.
This is the one that should make everyone take a deep breath. Language is just an incredibly complex and fast process. To say a word, you have to first get the meaning, the semantic part, and then instantly link it to the sound, the phonological part.
And sometimes that link just misfires.
It just misfires for a split second. It's a known feature of how the brain works at high speed. It's not a bug. It just means the connection between the idea and the sound had a momentary hiccup. It's not that the word is gone, it's just that the wire between the two departments was briefly down.
I've had that happen where I know the first letter of the word, or I know it has 3 syllables.
Yes, and that partial information is proof that the system is working. Your brain knows the meaning, it's actively searching, but the final step, retrieving the sound, has stalled. That feeling is the alert system telling you the search is stuck.
Fascinating. And the last cause noted in the sources is aging and language skills.
Right. It's a simple fact that as we get older, while our vocabulary and knowledge might actually increase, the speed of retrieval can slow down a bit.
Like an older computer taking a second longer to open a file.
It's a great way to think about it. The files are all there, maybe more than ever, but the processor is just a little slower. And we also have to talk about multilingual speakers here.
This part really surprised me. You'd think someone who speaks multiple languages would have fewer of these moments.
It seems counterintuitive, but they often have more. And it's crucial to understand why. It's not a deficit, it's a sign of complexity. A multilingual brain is managing several active language systems at once.
So they're all competing for attention.
They're all competing. When you're searching for a word in English, the same concept is also activating the word in Spanish or Mandarin in the background. Sometimes the brain just grabs the wrong language's label for a second. It's a sign of a really powerful dynamic system, not a sign of confusion.
So the big takeaway here is that forgetting a word is just human. It's a side effect of having a brain that's doing something incredibly difficult.
Precisely. And that brings us to the next big question. If it's so normal, why does it matter so much how we recover? Why is handling that blank moment so critical in the real world?
Right. If we zoom out a bit, why is it so crucial to get good at handling these moments? You said fluency is about recovery, not perfection. So what's the real-world impact of doing it well?
Well, the ability to navigate that moment gracefully is, I would argue, one of the biggest differentiators for an expert communicator. We get so focused on having a big vocabulary, but it's the resilience that really matters.
Okay, let's start with the internal benefit first. Confidence.
Handling a blank moment calmly gives you a direct shot of self-assurance. If you know you have a toolkit, a set of strategies to fall back on, the fear of it happening in the first place starts to fade.
That makes sense. The fear itself is what makes it worse.
It's a feedback loop. You panic, which releases more cortisol, which makes retrieval even harder. But when you have a smooth recovery, you prove to yourself right there in the moment that you can handle the pressure. And that builds real, durable confidence for the next time.
I think for a lot of people, the biggest fear is about their credibility. They think that if they forget a word, everyone in the room will think they're unprepared or don't know what they're talking about.
That's the fear, for sure.
Yeah.
But the reality is very different. Audiences are much more focused on your overall composure and the logic of what you're saying than one tiny slip-up.
So a good recovery actually makes you look more credible.
It absolutely can. Think about the opposite. If you panic and go, what was that word? Gosh, I've lost it. And you just freeze, that's what undermines your authority. But if you quickly and confidently just paraphrase the idea and keep going, you look like you're in command. That poise under pressure is way more impressive than remembering some obscure technical term.
It shows your focus on the message, not your ego.
That's a good point. Okay, what about the third impact? Connection.
This one is huge. When you handle a blank gracefully, you're showing you're human. And that invites empathy from the audience. Everyone in that room has had that exact same experience.
Right. So a little smile, a calm pause, it creates this bond. It's much more engaging than some stiff robotic presentation where the person seems flawless. The sources even mention that sometimes, inviting the audience to help you find the word can turn a potential mistake into a fun, collaborative moment.
That's a great technique. And that leads to the last one, leadership. Why is this skill so important for leaders?
Because leaders are constantly judged by how they think on their feet, especially when things don't go according to plan. The ability to stay calm and pivot when the script goes out the window, that's what separates a real leader from someone who just reads from a teleprompter. When a leader handles a blank moment with grace, they're modeling resilience for their entire team. They're showing that small imperfections don't derail the mission. It's a powerful display of emotional regulation.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. It's less about the word you lost and so much more about that quick, graceful pivot. So let's get into the actionable stuff. The toolkit.
A short-term toolkit.
Yeah, the things you can do right now in that moment, whether you're on a stage or just, at the dinner table.
All right, our first immediate recovery strategy, and I think this is probably the most useful one, is strategy 1. Describe or paraphrase the lost word.
This is your go-to. It's foundational because it keeps the momentum going and it shows that you understand the concept, not just the label for it.
So instead of freezing, you immediately shift gears and just explain what you mean in different words.
Exactly. You use simpler terms, or you give an example, or you even use a gesture. You're bypassing the broken link to the word sound and going straight to its meaning.
And that does a few things at once, right?
It does. First, it shows the audience you're adaptable, that you care more about getting the idea across. Second, you don't break the flow of the conversation. And third, what's really interesting is that the act of describing the word often triggers the word itself to pop into your head.
It's like you're giving your brain more clues to work with.
You're activating adjacent neural pathways. It's like running a different search query in your mind. So what are some specific phrases you can use to do this smoothly? You don't want to sound like you're panicking.
No, you want to sound deliberate. So you use phrases like, another way to put this is, or it's similar to when, or even just, it's the tool that does X, Y, and Z. You should also lean on analogies. If you forget the word infrastructure, you could say it's like the skeleton of the city, the roads, the pipes, all the systems that make it work.
And the sources mentioned combining that with nonverbal cues like hand gestures.
Absolutely. That's so powerful because you're engaging more of your brain. To use that example from the source, if you forget the word remote, you can just point and say, could you pass me that device?
Yeah.
The one for changing the channel without getting up. What's it called? A remote, yeah.
And you haven't really lost a beat.
Not at all. You've kept moving. That's the key.
Okay. Strategy 2 is about what to do in that split second of silence. Use fillers wisely and practice the power pause. We all say, and what's the problem with that?
Well, those verbal fillers tend to broadcast anxiety. They sound like you're searching and struggling. The goal is to replace that sound of panic with a sound of thoughtfulness. And that's the power pause.
Right. A deliberate silence can actually feel really strong, like you're gathering your thoughts for an important point.
Exactly. It adds weight, it adds gravitas. It signals that you're being deliberate, not that you're lost. And there's a physical benefit too. A conscious pause lets you take a breath, which literally calms your nervous system down and can help break that anxiety loop we talked about.
So the advice is, when you feel the word slipping away, instead of just stop, breathe, and let the silence hang for just a beat.
And if you need a little more time, use a soft transition phrase, something like so, or well, let's see, or what I'm really trying to say is, those are conversational placeholders that give your brain an extra second to catch up without sounding like you've hit a wall.
Okay, strategy 3 feels a little brave, but I can see how it would work. Ask for help and engage your listeners.
This one leans right into that idea of connection. If you've tried paraphrasing and you've paused and the word just isn't coming, sometimes the best thing to do is just open it up into the room.
It seems counterintuitive to admit you're stuck.
It does, but it can be so effective. It humanizes you instantly. Nobody expects you to be a walking dictionary. And audiences actually enjoy being included. It makes them feel like part of the conversation.
I've seen speakers do this really well in a Q&A. It just completely changes the energy in the room.
It does. The key is how you do it.
Yeah.
You have to be relaxed about it. A little self-deprecating humor works wonders. My brain has just deleted that file. Can anyone help me out? Or it's on the tip of my tongue. What's that word for?
And then what's the most important part when someone helps you?
You have to thank them properly and then smoothly integrate the word back into your sentence. Don't just grab it and move on. Say, yes. That's it. Catharsis. Thank you. And it's that catharsis that really drives the character's final decision. It shows grace.
I love the classroom example from the sources. A professor blanks on the term in the medias res.
Right. And instead of fumbling, they just say, great question. The term for starting a story in the middle of the action, it's escaping me for a second. Anyone remember? And when a student says it, the professor says, in medias res. Perfect. Thank you. They've just turned a personal blank into a teaching moment.
That's brilliant. Okay, and then there's strategy 4, which is kind of the ultimate safety net. Pivot and keep moving forward.
This is your release valve. If you've tried the other things and the word is just gone, you have to give yourself permission to let it go, pivot smoothly, and move on.
Why is this so important?
Because audiences have very short memories for these little slips if you move on quickly. What they remember is the long, painful, awkward struggle. If you spend 3 minutes searching for a word, that's the whole takeaway. If you spend 3 seconds pivoting to your main point, they'll just remember the main point.
So how do you pivot without just leaving a thought hanging?
You use a transition that reinforces the bigger idea. You shift from the specific label to the general concept. So you say something like, anyway, the main point is, or to sum up, while I can't recall the specific term, the key takeaway is this. You show that the single word wasn't essential to understanding the overall idea. You're still in command of the message. And what's so interesting here is that a good recovery isn't just about those external actions, like pausing or paraphrasing. A lot of the work is internal. It's about preparation and reframing your own thoughts.
That inner voice, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that can really sabotage you. The voice that says, oh no, you're failing. Everyone thinks you're an idiot.
Exactly. And that's where internal reframing and preparation becomes so critical. You have to actively practice positive self-talk. You need a pre-planned internal script for when it happens.
What a mantra.
Sort of. Something simple you can tell yourself in that moment, like, this is normal. It's a brain glitch. My message is still important. That simple thought can short-circuit the anxiety before it spirals.
And you have to shift your focus away from the missing word.
You have to. Obsessing over the word just makes the block worse. Instead, you consciously redirect your focus to your audience, to the connection you're trying to make. A little smile or a soft, knowing laugh can also work wonders. It tells everyone, including yourself, hey, this is no big deal. I've got this.
In more formal settings, like a presentation, the sources also talked about using aids.
Yes, using your notes or your slides as anchors. It's just smart planning. A quick glance at a slide title or a bullet point can be the exact jog your memory needs.
And the pro tip about color coding notes was really interesting.
It's a great little brain hack. If you know all your key technical terms are highlighted in, say, green, your eyes can find them much faster under pressure than if you're just scanning a wall of black text. It's a visual cue that helps speed up the search.
This all leads to the idea of preparing specific bridge phrases in advance, like literally scripting your escape routes.
It's a very high-level strategy, and it works. You decide ahead of time what you will say if you go blank. You practice them until they're automatic.
So what's an example of a good bridge phrase?
Something like, I'm looking for the precise word here, but let's move on to the next step while it comes to me. Or, let me put that idea another way for you. Having those ready to go means you don't have to invent a graceful exit while your brain is already working overtime. It automates the recovery.
This feels like we're moving from the immediate tactics to the bigger picture, the long game. How do you build up this cognitive resilience over time?
Yeah, the long game is all about training your brain to have more flexibility and more redundant pathways. The first habit is to practice synonym flexibility.
So not just learning more words, but learning more ways to say the same thing.
Exactly. Don't get attached to that one perfect technical word. When you're preparing for something, deliberately come up with 3 different ways to explain your key concepts. Imagine you have to explain it to a 10-year-old, then to a peer, then to an expert. That forces you to build different neural pathways to the same idea. So if one is blocked, you have others ready to go.
I like that idea. It builds a kind of mental safety net.
It does. The second big area for long-term improvement is mindful speaking.
And that's more than just remembering to breathe, right?
Much more. It's about fundamentally changing your delivery speed, deliberately slowing down and putting small, intentional pauses between your ideas, not just when you're stuck.
You're giving your brain's processor more time to work.
You're giving it the milliseconds it needs to queue up the next thought and the words that go with it. This is why groups like Toastmasters or even improv classes are so valuable. They train you to be comfortable with that measured, spontaneous pace. And simple things like reading a dense article and then summarizing it out loud forces you to practice that retrieval process in a low-stakes way.
Okay, and the final piece of the long game is really getting into the cognitive gym. Improve working memory. How does strengthening our brain's mental scratch pad help us find words?
Because your working memory is what's holding all the pieces of the puzzle when you're searching for a word. It's holding the partial clues, starts with a P, means to clarify, has 4 syllables. A stronger working memory can hold more of those clues for longer and juggle them more efficiently, which gives your retrieval system a better chance of finding a match.
So what are some actual exercises for that? We're not just talking about crossword puzzles, are we?
We're talking about more targeted brain training, things like word association games or trying to tell a story with a very specific set of constraints. Even memorizing lists, phone numbers, grocery lists is a classic way to build that sequential recall muscle.
And the sources mention things that don't even seem related to words, like mental arithmetic.
Right, because that trains the underlying system. Mental math and techniques like chunking, grouping long strings of information into smaller bits, they train your brain to hold and recall sequences efficiently. And language is all about recalling a specific sequence of sounds. So strengthening that general sequencing skill translates directly to smoother, faster language retrieval.
It seems so obvious when you say it, but our physical health is so tied to our mental performance. And that includes word retrieval.
Oh, it's absolutely critical. Your brain is a physical organ. It's an energy hog. If the body that's supporting it is stressed, tired, or malnourished, you're going to see more of these cognitive glitches.
So let's start with the absolute foundation. Sleep.
Non-negotiable. You have to aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Sleep is when your brain cleans itself out and, crucially, consolidates memories. If you're sleep deprived, your cognitive speed just tanks. You can't be articulate and fluent if your brain is literally struggling with fatigue and can't find the files it saved last night.
And then there's nutrition and hydration. This feels basic, but I guess the impact is huge.
It's fundamental. Even mild dehydration can cause measurable brain fog and slow down your thinking. And diet-wise, you want to focus on those brain-friendly foods. The sources specifically call out things like fatty fish, which are high in omega-3s.
Why are omega-3s so important for this specific process?
Because they're a key building block for your brain cells. They help maintain the health of the myelin sheath, which is like the insulation on the wiring between your neurons. Healthy insulation means faster, more efficient electrical signals.
So faster retrieval.
Faster retrieval, better connections. Same with leafy greens and nuts. They provide antioxidants that protect all that delicate wiring from stress and damage.
Okay, and the final physical piece is movement.
Regular movement. Cardio is great because it gets more blood and oxygen to the brain, which fuels those high-energy thought processes. But it's also about stress management. Things like yoga, stretching, even a quiet walk, they help lower your systemic cortisol levels. And since we already established that stress and anxiety are a primary cause of TOT, anything you do to manage that stress is a direct investment in your verbal fluency.
We should take a second here to talk about a specific group of people who deal with this in a really unique way. Multilingual speakers.
Yes, this is so important. If you speak more than one language, you might have these blanks more often. Or you might be trying to find a word in English and the German word is the only one that comes to mind. We have to reframe this. It is not a sign of confusion. It's a sign of a really agile, powerful brain that's managing multiple complex systems at once.
So how can they manage that internal competition between languages, especially when they're under pressure to just speak one?
Well, one strategy is to just lean into it. If the audience is right, if you're speaking to people who might understand, you can use a word from another language if it's the perfect fit, like saying Schadenfreude, because there's no perfect English equivalent. You borrow the word and you actually add precision.
But what if they don't understand the other language? That's when it can feel like a mistake.
Right. In that case, you practice what's called efficient word borrowing. If the French word pops out, don't get flustered. Just say it quickly and then immediately follow up with, which means, and then paraphrase it in English. Or just say, part of my brain's translation software. What I mean is, the goal is a quick correction and then you just keep moving forward.
And what about code switching, when you have to jump between languages?
You have to practice your transitions. If you know you'll be switching in a meeting, have your phrases ready. To explain this better, I'll switch to the technical term in German, which is, that gives your listeners a clear signpost and it keeps you in control even when you're juggling multiple lexicons. And, before we finish up with the strategies, we have to talk about technology. We live in an age where there are tools that can really help with this.
So what are some of the tech tools our listeners should be looking at?
The first category is vocabulary apps, things like Anki or Quizlet. They're powerful because they use spaced repetition to help you learn and retain words, so they show you a word right before you're about to forget it. Regular practice with key terms from your industry really cements them in your long-term memory, making them easier to retrieve under pressure.
And what about using tech to analyze your own speech?
Oh, that's a great one. Use speech-to-text practice. Just open a dictation app on your phone and talk. summarize an article, practice a presentation. Then you look at the transcript. It's an incredible diagnostic tool. You can see exactly where you stumbled, which words you hesitate on, and then you can practice those specific spots.
And finally, using tech during the actual presentation.
Right, using presentation assistance. The presenter notes function in PowerPoint or Keynote is your best friend. It's a visual safety net. If you feel your brain starting to go blank, a quick, discreet glance at a key phrase on your laptop can be the trigger that gets you back on track. It's all about building in those redundancies. So to kind of bring this all together, I think it's really important we bust some of the common myths that just add so much unnecessary pressure around this whole thing.
Okay, let's do it. Myth 1. Only nervous or unprepared speakers forget words.
Totally false. The reality is everybody does it. It's a normal part of how spontaneous speech works. I mean, linguists who study this for a living experience tip of the tongue. To say it's only about nerves just makes people more nervous. It's the sign of a brain that's actively working.
All right, myth 2. Forgetting a word means you lack knowledge. This is the one that really hits people's confidence.
And it's just not true. It is almost always a momentary retrieval issue, a glitch in the connection. It has nothing to do with your underlying competence or intelligence. If you can describe the concept, you obviously know it. You just couldn't access the label for a second.
Okay, what about the big fear in the moment? Myth 3. Audiences notice and judge every single slip.
The reality is so much kinder than our inner critic. Most of the time, the audience doesn't even notice. They're focused on your overall message.
Yeah.
And even when they do notice, what they value is authenticity and a smooth recovery, not some kind of robotic perfection.
And the last one, about how to prepare. Myth 4. Only memorization prevents blanks.
This one is actually dangerous. Relying only on memorization is so brittle. If you're nervous or get interrupted and you lose your one single memorized word, the whole thing can fall apart. Adaptability, all the skills we've been talking about today, that's the key to real resilience, not just rote recall.
So when you put it all together, what does this really mean for us? Mastering this is really about developing flexibility, trusting yourself, and focusing on real human connection instead of trying to be flawless.
Absolutely. Your value as a communicator isn't measured by your ability to never forget a word. It's measured by the clarity and sincerity and, yes, the resilience you bring to your message. When you're authentic and you show that you can handle a little bit of pressure, that's when you're truly powerful.
And every time you successfully use one of these strategies, you paraphrase, you take that power pause, you pivot, you're just reinforcing your own ability to adapt. You're actually modeling great communication skills for everyone else. And at the end of the day, people are going to remember your poise and your message, not the one word you briefly forgot.
Exactly right. So the next time you feel that word on the tip of your tongue, don't see it as a failure. See it as a low-stakes chance to practice connection and humor and cognitive growth. And here's a final thought to take with you, building on that long game. What if, starting today, you spent just 5 minutes every morning taking a common concept you use and deliberately generating 3 synonyms and 3 analogies for it? How might that one small, consistent practice fundamentally change your fluency and your confidence next week? Go out there, practice your pivots, and just keep the conversation flowing.